You're listening to Draft Chaff. Coming up this week.
I don't even know, man. Just like all the rats in Gnawing Crescendo, I guess. Let's start with most powerful card.
Yeah, I don't think there was much of a debate on this one. It was Gingerbrute.
Oh yeah, red white, not close. And probably because I only really drafted red white. I think I had maybe one non-red white deck. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Draft Chaff. This is episode number 176. My name is Zach. I'm one of your hosts, and joining me, as per usual, Ben Fisher. What's up, dude?
Not a lot. You know, it's times like this that I'm thankful I have a co-host who's very patient with me when it comes to editing and things of this nature.
I may have lost my temper a little bit on the pre-show today.
It was so funny. Check out the pre-show for well, let's just say I think I need some lessons in how to use either GIMP or Photoshop or Fire Alpaca, maybe some combination of all three, but apparently you're not supposed to use all three at once.
No, they pretty much all serve the same purpose, so we'll get there. But today is our farewell to WOE. You know, we're calling this one WOE Long Farewell. I think that's a clever name, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done there. But yeah, we are saying goodbye to WOE. Before we do, though, our usual housekeeping, do jump in the Discord if you're not already in there. We've been making some really big changes over there. Cleaned up a lot of channels. We've got some new kind of forum channels in there that make things a little bit easier to keep organized and find different formats that may be coming in and out of playability or brand new formats, etc. We also released our new Bounty Boards channel, which, while it's not technically live yet, you can go preview and take a look at that. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And it's also just a great place to be to chat all things MTG, discuss your picks, talk about your trophies, chat about life, any of these sorts of things. The link to that is on our Twitter page as well as in the episode description, so do check that out if you want to join the community over there. And if you'd like to support the show directly, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/DraftChaffPod. Huge thanks to all of our patrons who continue to support us each and every week. And we're live. We have been talking for like 2 months now about the relaunch of our Patreon. It's live. You can go check it out right now. We have all sorts of new stuff there. You may have already noticed we've rebranded our art. The cover art for the show is different. We've got new banners and stuff on all of our different social media platforms as well. And all the new perks for the Patreon are live. So because of that, and because this is the first time where we're really talking about it, some of you may have seen the announcement video, but in case you didn't, we're going to walk through all the different tiers here so you get a brief but descriptive take on each of the tiers that are now available on Patreon. So if any of these speak to you, maybe go check that out and give it a go.
Let's start off with the Ornithopter tier. This is our first tier. It's $1 a month, about a quarter a week. This is just, our basic tier. We'll shout you out on the podcast. You get a special Discord role, all that usual stuff. Honestly, this means just as much to us as any of the tiers, right? Like any amount of support you all have shown us over the years, it's amazing. So we thank you all for this very much.
Yeah, after Ornithopter, we've got the Thraben Inspector tier. That's $4 a month, or about $1 a week. And with that, you'll get the rewards from the previous tier. So the shout out and a unique Discord role. Every single tier has its own unique Discord role, so it's not the same role across tiers. You'll also get access to the exclusive pre-show videos that are in the Patreon feed, as well as our show notes that Ben meticulously crafts. They look gorgeous. I've never seen show notes that look like this, so he does a great job. And if you want to check those out, this is the tier for you.
Now, we're going to walk up our list of Draft Chaff heroes here with Seasoned Hallowblade, one of my old favorites, our next tier. This is $8 a month, about $2 a week. What is that? Like a candy bar a week? That's about the amount of enjoyment some people get from us, right?
Something like that.
So this also has all previous stuff. And then it also has a personal thank you video from one of us. Just a special thanks to you.
After that, we move on to Inspiring Overseer, which is $12 a month or $3 a week. And you'll get, again, all the previous tiers rewards. But on top of that, and this is, I think, one of the aspects of the new relaunch that I'm most excited about, you'll also get a custom die-cut Draft Chaff hero sticker. Not Draft Chaff sticker, Draft Chaff hero sticker. We're working with a phenomenal fantasy artist to actually create custom stickers for each of our Draft Chaff heroes every set. So if you sign up to this tier or any of the tiers above this, you will actually get one of those new stickers every single set, starting when you sign up. And every time we announce a Draft Chaff hero, we'll have new stickers being sent out to all of our Inspiring Overseers Plus.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's recurring, right? It's not a one-off like our last sticker perk was. We're super excited for this. My friend, this artist, she's awesome. And she's very excited by especially this new set because she's a big fan of like fantasy, high fantasy, and pirates. So that'll be sick. Plus, this equates to like what? A black coffee a week? I think some
Something
people
like
probably enjoy us more than a black coffee a week, although I can't say for sure. Next up, we've got our Wingmantle Chaplain tier. This is $20 a month, about $5 an episode. This, again, has all previous stuff, but then it also has access to our exclusive Draft Doctor channel. We've been doing Draft Doctors for a while. It's gone through some different forms, but really what happens is we just help doctor your draft up a little bit, right? We know a lot about Limited, and we want to help fix up your decks, adjust their vectors a little bit, make sure everything about the deck is tuned up. We could do a breakdown of your gameplay, replay on 17 lands. We could take a look at your deck list. We could even look at a pick and give you some extra feedback about it. Some extra feedback from us.
Yeah, and that might look like a write-up on, say, 17 lands data that you send us. It might be just actually like a quick hand-recorded video of us talking through the changes that we would make or the different ways we would have approached the draft, things like that. So it should be a little bit on the more personal side, but it'll be in a channel so anybody else who's also in that channel can benefit from the same sort of information, though the responses will be personalized to you. And lastly, another one of our very exciting tiers here. This is our last tier, the Sarah Angel tier. It's $40 a month or $10 an episode. You get all the previous tier. This is the top of the line. So you're getting everything that comes before this. You also get voting rights on changes we make to the official Draft Chaff Cube. So rather than us making the changes ourselves, we're going to propose changes to our Sarah Angel tier patrons, and we'll have a vote. And the cards that are coming out, the cards that are going in will be voted on so that you guys can have a direct say in that. And your name will be immortalized in the credits on the Cube cover page. So we'll have that there as well. And on top of that, we're also going to run exclusive monthly virtual Draft Chaff Cube drafts with prize support for the 7 members in this tier. So yes, this is limited sizing. You can only join while there are 7 or fewer members, or 6 or fewer, I suppose. 7 total. And the reason there's 7 is because either Ben or myself will also be in those drafts. So you'll get to draft the cube with prize support, but you also get to draft with one of us. And if someone can't make it, then, one of us will jump in as well. So maybe both of us, maybe just one of us. But we're really excited about that. Love to see that happen and get to give you guys some prizes for drafting our cube, because that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, that would be super cool. To be clear, we're looking at like actual prize support, like not just a pack or 2 for like a pity pack. Yeah. We're looking at like maybe getting a box for one of these things and just, I don't know, maybe you win 10 packs or 15 packs. We'll work out the distribution, but we want this one to be cool. Plus, it's drafting the Draft Chaff Cube, which not too many paper versions of this exist. I know a couple of people that have ordered the entire Draft Chaff Cube. Shout outs to them. Awesome stuff. Glad you have it. Hopefully you're enjoying it. I have my copy of the Draft Chaff Cube, and we've gotten amazing feedback on it. People have said it's a super fun cube, really fun environment. And the best part is you get to play with all the Draft Chaff cards you've loved and forgotten and known about over the years. We're honestly super thankful for all the support that all of you have given us throughout the years, whether it's even just, rating us on Spotify. Did you know we have a perfect 5-star rating on Spotify?
We do.
That's awesome.
So unsolicited, by the way, we didn't go in and have like all of our friends go and cheat the system.
That's a great idea. Now we should. But I'm gonna be like, hey, do you have Spotify on your phone? Let me see that real quick. Like it, give it back. No, we really appreciate that. Whether it's telling a friend or following us on Twitter or retweeting our posts, we see all of you. We love all of you, and we really appreciate it. And know that we're not sponsored as of right now. Like the entire way that we're supported in doing this is from the Patreon. So, we do this because we love to do it, right? But we do a good amount of work. Like all this stuff we've probably put in, I don't know, I've been putting in probably like 2 or 3 hours a day for the past couple of weeks. Some days on, some days off. But yeah, that's what it's felt like. And all that is to say, we really appreciate everybody who's given to us and has continued to be a part of our community. And I think we've made up the best community of limited players on the internet. I think that's just what it is. I mean, have you seen the Discord? Like, there's so many people from all over the world, and everyone's just talking about drafting and how much fun it is and how much we all love it. I mean, what's better than that, right?
Yeah, and we're not quite done, right? With the Patreon rework, we have a few other things. So a couple of reasons we want to kind of boost funding, and some of the motivation behind redoing the Patreon was to make it easier for you guys to support the show and feel like you're actually getting more out of it than what we were offering prior. B, we, with the launch of our Bounty Boards channel, so the Bounty Boards channel is a channel in the Discord where every single set we're going to release what we're calling a bounty board. The board will have a list of bounties or achievements that you are able to kind of submit proof of having collected or earned, and you'll accrue points throughout the season. Whoever has the most points at the end of the season, top 3 spots, will win real prizes, booster packs. Maybe they'll change into some other physical items as well, like maybe exclusive Draft Chaff merch or whatever it might be. We're starting out with just like kind of a basic prize pool of booster packs, but that's something we would love feedback on, and we'll continue to iterate on it as sets evolve and progress. But so you just by playing the game, none of the achievements and the bounties that we're putting out are win rate based. So it's not a spike thing. We're sticking very true to our roots, and we think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're really excited to see how that goes. But of course, your support on the Patreon enables us to boost the prizes there and make that even more fun and grow that whole aspect of the community as well. So very excited about that as well. And then, of course, we do want to have at some point hire an editor so we can reduce, to Ben's point, the amount of time we're putting into it so we can actually generate more content, more draft videos, things of that nature. So those are the main motivators here. And if you join now, we're in the middle of a launch window. If you join between when this episode is released and November 15th of 2023, you'll get an exclusive Draft Chaff acrylic pin as well, featuring our new logo. So that's just kind of an extra thank you to say thanks for joining during this like relaunch and kind of sticking with us as we were revamping a bunch of stuff.
Personally, I'm most excited for the bounty board. A little bummed that I can't compete for the top prize. Let's say Zach or I do manage to get top prize. We're obviously not included. The top 3 will be receiving prize packs. And I think this is maybe the coolest thing. This is going to directly scale with the people that support us on Patreon. The more Patreon supporters we have, the more prizes we can offer for this. We're trying to give this stuff all right back to you for doing cool stuff. So, maybe let's say someday we'll have like the top 5 people will be able to get prize packs, or we can increase the number of prize packs that we give out. This is going to be fluid and it's going to change, but it's only going to get better. And again, like Zach said, the coolest thing about this is that it's all just doing gameplay stuff that you probably wanted to do anyway. If you're listening to us, you want to transform that wacky artifact into the Grim Captain, right? You have to craft it with like a dinosaur, a merfolk. What is it?
I don't even remember. The set's not out yet, Ben.
A vampire and something else, and then you flip it and it becomes this dinosaur thing with hexproof and lifelink and vigilance, and you know what I'm talking about. You want to do that, right? Well, then wouldn't you rather do that and have the chance of getting a free pack or 2 or 5 from it, right? So definitely check out bounty boards. Get excited for those as the new set drops, because I think there's going to be some fierce competition for those.
And again, just to wrap this all up, you can check all of that out at patreon.com/draftchaffpod. All the details are there. You can read the public post on what the pin is about and all that kind of stuff. But thank you just for listening. Whether you choose to support us on Patreon or not, the fact that you're here listening is way more meaningful than I think you could possibly know. When we started this, we did not expect to have even remotely the number of people we have listening to this show. So thank you for your support in just listening. That's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, listener. You specifically, not those other people that aren't you. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's you right now.
With that, now that our shilling is out of the way, let's move on to our crack a draft type thing. We have a pack one, pick one here to kind of send WOE off into Fairy Tale Land or wherever we send sets that we're no longer drafting.
So let's start here with some commons. We've got Shadow the Oath. That was the 5-mana black kill spell. Puts a wicked roll on something. That's fine, right?
Yeah.
I feel like most of these cards are going to be just, I mean, 5 mana black removal spell, sorcery speed. You're never super stoked about it, but it's always fine. Titanic Growth. Go see the Sirkovitz thread that's actually not really about Titanic Growth for more information. Unruly Catapult, bit of a plant for blue-red, kind of a flop. I never really got that one to work. Again, you could say that about most cards in the average pack of WoE 2. Twinville Guide, just not exciting. Non-Crescendo, pretty niche, but in the Go Wide's Rat deck, it was pretty good. Archon's Glory, I like this one. This one was a good white bargain spell to use with Princess Takes Flight.
Yep.
I actually had some games where I knew I had an Archon's Glory left in my deck, and I knew Princess Takes Flight was about to go to the 3rd chapter and give them their creature back on my next main phase. So I would set a draw step stop to see if I drew the Archon's Glory, and then I could sack it before getting to my main phase. And I did that multiple times. It was pretty sweet.
Good
Mocking
stuff.
Sprite. Like fairies wasn't a thing either. Sweet Tooth Witch. This one was good, right? In blue black or black green food rather. This one has definitely killed me. I've definitely killed opponents with it.
Yeah, I feel like you're just happy to have Sweet Tooth Witch in any black deck. So this is the most like well-rounded card we've seen so far. I think that and Shatter the Oath probably.
Yeah, I mean 3 mana 3/2 just make a food on ETV. That probably alone would have been playable in the green black decks because of how some of them can really efficiently use food. Think of like Greta, where you just want like as many foods as you can get.
Yeah, and then she also, like, if you just don't have any of those outlets, the Sweet Tooth Witch is an outlet for you to like convert your food into real like pressure. So yeah, pretty solid.
We've got Hollow Scavenger next. This one fulfills a pretty similar role, kind of buddy with Sweet Tooth Witch. Yeah, it's a good way to get bargain going super early because you can make that food on turn 1.
Do you take the first Hollow Scavenger over the first Sweet Tooth Witch? Like here in Pack 1 Pick 1, are you taking Scavenger over Witch or vice versa?
I think you're supposed to take Witch first just because black is so much better, but black-green is still really good. I mean, the Jund colors were where it was at this time around, besides like, you know, a dedicated red-white deck or something like that.
Sure.
And I'm not as big a blue hater as some have been in this format. I thought blue was great if you had the right pieces. For example, those are all of our commons. There's nothing in here we're interested in taking. The top pick is probably the Witch. I might even take like the Glory over it. I like the red-white aggressive decks, and if you can snipe that vector early, then you can really go to town. Anyway, we've got an enchanting fail here. It's Hatching Plans. This card is actually awesome and a reason to play blue, or at least splash blue, right? A good Hatching Plans deck where you're doing a bunch of bargain things. This is a really reactive vector. I think the best card to pair with Hatching Plans is Kellen's Lightblades, because it just destroys an attacking creature for 2 mana and draws you 3 cards in the process. So just really, really good value.
Yeah, it's really not hard to make Hatching Plans like viable. Include in any deck that can cast it, and like just put bargain cards in your deck and you're good.
Yeah, you would probably put bargain cards in your deck anyway, right? Like a lot of them are pretty efficient rates. Also done commons, we've got some competition. We've got Tough Cookie. This one was a banger.
Yeah, pretty solid. I think I'd probably take the Tough Cookie here, given what we've seen so far in this pack.
Ooh, over the Hatching Plans? What's going on? I would take the Hatching Plans.
Think I would. I just feel like some of these like low end, and I haven't actually drafted the deck, but from some of the different screenshots and you know discourse that I've seen, I feel like it doesn't take a whole lot to make like this kind of low to the ground aggressive deck that like the dirtily decks that are trying to do the Hatching Plans thing just get run over. Like I don't care if you draw 3 cards if I'm killing you.
I feel like we've done a bit of a role reversal thing. Like what's happening? Why am I advocating to take a blue card and you're telling me that I should be taking a low aggressive green creature? What's happening here? What did this relaunch do to us? Did we body swap? Is this a
nice
Freaky Friday
thing?
Anyway, no, Tough Cookie is great. I mean, this is great in the black-green food decks. It is 2 food in 1, right? So for those things that really care about it, it's obviously great with Sweet Tooth Witch. And then even just the animating an existing food. The fact that this can be 4 hasty power in the late game if you have an existing food laying around, and then 4 more power the next time. This is a 2-drop that demands to be killed. So I do think it's probably the correct pick here over Hatching Plans, but I'm a menace. I'm going to take the Hatching Plans anyway. We've got a Picklock Prankster. This one was fine. Again, just like sound like a spellsy, fairies-y thing. Just not what you want to be doing in the format. A Fairy Fencing as well, our last uncommon. Good kill spell, but the blue-black fairies deck, I think I saw it come together like exactly 3 times. And one of those was at pre-release. Now, our rare here is an interesting one. It is Extraordinary Journey. This is the XX blue mythic, or rare rather. When it enters the battlefield, you exile X target creatures. Their owners can replay them. And then it has the clause, whenever one or more non-token creatures enter the battlefield from exile, you draw a card. And that's for both your side and the opponent's side. So that means all the things that you bounce, let's say you cast this for X equals 2, right? So 6 mana, you bounce 2 of their things to exile. Whenever they replay those things, you draw a card. Like each time it happens. And let's say you're casting adventure creatures, right? So you cast the adventure half, you cast, Hollow Scavenger. And then you cast the main creature side of it, right? From exile, you draw a card off that too. So if you had a critical mass of sort of like teamer adventures-y cards, a critical mass of creatures with adventures on them, you could draw 1 million cards. Like this is a board wipe that also refills your hand. If you can dump a bunch of mana into this in the late game and even just reset some of your stuff, maybe something under an aura that's locking it down, something that's under a cursed roll that your opponent put on it. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this card. It's super flexible. That being said, it is not very good against black-red rats or red-white beatdown, or I don't know. I feel like this card deserves a second shot. Maybe in the draft Chaff cube. I don't know. We can put a pin in that. I think I would probably take Hatching Plans over it. I wouldn't fault someone for taking Tough Cookie over everything, though.
I think I'm still on Tough Cookie, yeah. All right, on to our main topic this week. And if you're a longtime listener or an astute listener of any kind, you may realize that, wait, where did 2 other segments go? Because we usually have 2 other segments here. We're changing things up. As part of a revamp, we're switching up a little bit how the show goes. We want to give you guys more of the value up front, and we'll kind of circle back to those things. They're not gone, but they'll be at the end of the episode. So stick around if you want to hear things like our Teferi Tybalt or our listener question of the week, and we'll go through those at the end. So let's jump in. It is time to say goodbye to WOE, Ben. I know you're so sad about it, but it is time to say goodbye. So, of course, as we usually do, we're going to give Chaffee Awards away for various categories to certain cards in the set. Let's just jump right into it. Let's start with most powerful card.
Yeah, I don't think there was much of a debate on this one. It was Ginger Brute. Everyone's thinking it. It's that pesky little guy. He wears counters well. he wears rolls well. No, obviously it's Gruff Triplets, right? I mean, this card's win rate was just through the roof. It is the most brutal thing to see come down to the side. Imadane's Recruiter, you can beat that card, right? And it's probably one of the other most dominant cards in the format, one of the ones that'll actually stick in our memories from this. But Gruff Triplets is the one that really just made people say, that card does what now?
Yeah.
Sometimes if you tried to kill it, things would get worse for you, right? So Gruff Triplets was just an absurd bomb. It is definitely the most powerful card in the format. Ginger Brute, maybe a close 30th or 40th.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. This was, I believe, if memory serves, this was the first like standard legal set we got where they moved to that like 1 planeswalker per set design, right?
Yeah.
I think this was the first one. So that's interesting. Planeswalkers aren't really a thing anymore, and I kind of thought it was refreshing. Not that you used to run into them all that often anyway, because they are mythics, but like it's kind of nice to not have to think like, oh, they probably have any of the 5 planeswalkers in the set. I kind of appreciated that. Kind of a tangential thing there, but yeah, Gruff Triplet's absolutely ridiculous. And if you were lucky to have more than 1 on the battlefield at a time, and I mean more than 1 cast from your hand, not the tokens, you know what a good time is like.
I can't imagine losing with a deck that has 2 copies of Gruff Triplets in.
I'm done. Cancel the show. We're closing it down. It's over.
We just relaunched. We went through all this work. All right, next up is the least powerful card. A card that actively harms you for casting it. What do you got?
Well, I actually took that a step further. Not a card necessarily that actively harms you for casting it, but a set of cards that actively harm you by putting them in your deck. And those are the enchanting fails. I ran out of space to type them all out, but all of the enchantments that were added as a bonus sheet in this set that just didn't get there for limited. They were great constructed plants and reprints and such, but they really just weren't something you really should be paying any attention to in the limited format for the most part.
If you or a loved one put Blood Moon into your sealed deck because maybe you didn't know what was going on at the start of the format, or you were like, oh, this card looks cool, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. We'll hook you up. I actually put Oppression on there. Funny thing is, I can barely remember what the card Oppression does. Let me see if I've got this right. It's 1 black. It's an enchantment. And it says whenever a player casts a spell, they discard a card as well. Something along those lines. I was also considering Repercussion, which is whenever a creature is dealt damage, it deals that much to their controller, I believe. I barely know what these are. Like, these are wacky, random, commander playable enchantments that, someone's going to put in their ridiculous, I don't know, Zur the Enchanter deck or some nonsense like that. And these were just such a miss in limited. It's just so disappointing. Such a bummer that, this slot that's been used well, like, look at how March of the Machines did it, right? The bonus sheet was awesome. Here, it was just such a whiff. So how'd I do? Did I get him right?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you nailed him.
Nice.
All right, so next up, we've got Most Annoying Card. This is a card that you just kind of hate to see come down on the board across from you. Ben, what'd you got?
I put down Harried Spearguard for this one. This one is that 1/1 haster that dies into a rat. Towards the end of the format, I was gravitating more towards the 3 to 4 to 5 color control decks, which really relied on Hatching Plans, Kellen's Light Blades, Prophetic Prism, those types of decks. And Harried Spearguard coming down on turn 1 while on the draw, you just go, oh, okay. Well, my do-nothing cards all of a sudden are not going to be good enough to win this match.
Yeah, not so much. That's a good one. Yeah, I having been a longtime control player, I know the feeling.
Yeah.
For me, it was almost certainly Regal Bunnicorn, this set. Every time, it's a rare, so it's not that I played against it a ton, but I did see it a lot, and every time I couldn't find the answer, and it just, like, the few answers I had were only answers until it got so big, and then it would always get bigger than my removal.
Yeah.
Before I could draw the removal, and I could just never get rid of the thing, and then it was it's super frustrating.
Yeah, you top deck Torch the Tower, and you look and it's a 4/4, and then you're like, it's okay, it's okay. I have a cut in my hand, and the next turn they play like 3 more creatures, and you're like, wait, and then so it's a 7/7, but now cut in ends. It's a mess.
It's not fun, and it's really easy to make that thing big because everything just like generates random food and like other stupid artifacts or rat tokens or whatever, and like the thing gets big quick. The other kind of runner up for this one that I had was Tough Cookie, just because you kind of pointed this out earlier, Ben, but having to waste like really good removal, I say waste, in this case I think it's actually good, but having to point good removal at a 2-drop feels bad. Like, it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah. What was the best janky combo? This is a fun Chaffee to award. I always like seeing what people can come up with for this.
I don't even know, man. Just like all the rats and gnawing crescendo, I guess.
Just gnaw away at your opponent. Yeah. I mean, going really wide and casting a 2/0 to all creatures, that's historically been a pretty solid strategy in limited. I mean, think back to DMU, right? That was sort of White's vector in DMU. Here we've seen it kind of more centered in red, and a bit in black too, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that came to mind was actually just Imidane's Recruiter, because like both halves of it by itself is a combo. I don't think it's a janky combo though. Like, it's actually just a good one, and it's
yeah. Best combo is Trained Troops plus Imidane's Recruiter. Enough said.
Yeah.
My Chaffee here is going to go to Princess Takes Flight plus Stockpiling Celebrant. I've had decks with 3 of each of these. It's so cool.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. And these work pretty well with each other, right? Like, you're playing the Celebrant, you're bouncing the Princess Takes Flight. The second chapter helps buff the creatures that you're playing. You get this sort of it's almost like an aggressive start with a combo finish. because when you have this sort of chain going, you're scrying with the celebrants to find your other princess takes flights and your other celebrants to pick up other things. You're still casting other cards because this only is like 3 mana a turn. On turn 5, you can do like one of these 2 and a 2-drop. These decks were really consistent because of all the scrying and how you could usually get copies of both. There weren't too many people at the table that could make good use of it. It felt like I don't know, I guess it felt like Princess Takes Flight was a very specific vector, and there were only a handful of cards that could profitably interact with it. Specifically, like white cards that would help you bargain, or somehow interact with it in another way, like how Stockpiling Celebrant does by bouncing it to your hand. There was that Icy Kiss of something. There was a 1 mana white spell that also interacted with it. Whatever.
I don't remember.
Yeah. This was my favorite combo by far, and probably what I'll miss most about the format. I really liked this sort of nonsense that the white decks get up to.
All right, so next up we've got the Chaffee for Chaffiest Chaff. This is a card or set of cards that were really awesome and limited. Probably just won't ever see play in any other format besides the limited format they were printed in, and but actually were decent in that format.
For this one, I've got Hopeful Vigil and Hopeless Nightmare. This kind of pair of cards. Hopeful Vigil was the 2 mana white one that ETB'd and made a 2/2 knight. Hopeless Nightmare was on the ETB'd and forced your opponent to discard and lose some life. Really interesting cards. Clearly set up to make the black-white deck tick and like have enchantments be put in the graveyard. But it turned out other decks also just wanted these. The black-green deck was really efficient for bargaining. I mean, think of like Hamlet Glutton, where it wanted a Hopeless Nightmare down early so you could play a turn 5, 6/6 gain 3 with Trample. Hopeful Vigil was great in the red-white decks because it activated Celebrant, right? So you could celebrate just by casting this one single card, and that was good. Black-white got kind of sniped here by the rest of the black and white decks because these key pieces that the black-white deck probably need in order to function, because let's be honest, it didn't. These were just really good everywhere else. But will these ever see constructed play, commander play, casual kitchen table play? Maybe, but even then they're really niche and they're kind of insular to this set. So like, nah, I feel bad. These cards are cool designs. It's a shame that the black-white vector just didn't really work.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. These were kind of on my mind as well with this Chaffee in particular. They did feel really good, and I think actually the fact that they had homes in so many different decks increased just how good they were. Like they were just so playable. You could speculate on one of these early and pretty much put it in any deck you ended up in and still feel good about it. So definitely good in the format. And yeah, I agree. They're probably not powerful enough to see play pretty much anywhere else. Maybe Pauper. Yeah.
Next up, our Chaffee for Oops. We misjudged a certain card. What card did we misjudge most?
I think I misjudged Cauldron most. Agatha's Cauldron.
Yeah.
Like I did not expect that to break into every format ever made ever.
Yeah, what is it, like $60 now probably?
It's something like that, yeah.
Yeah, to everybody that opened it in their sealed pools and was like, what? This isn't going to work. Go dust that thing off because it's worth some cash now. Yeah, this card is sort of like the janky combo brewer's dream, and that it enables tons of wacky stuff. There's like mono blue, infinite mana, infinite storm and standard or something. I don't know. A lot of nonsense about Cauldron. I went with Ariet's Tempting Apple. Once I realized how fast this format was and how, you actually do want to put a turn against effect in just an average beatdown deck. This was a colorless turn against effect. So a black-red deck could play it. I guess if you had a really, really aggressive green-white deck, you could play it. Those decks could exist sometimes. They didn't tend to, but if you had like a red-white deck, you would definitely play this as well. And then it had that pay to sack, your opponent loses 3, a sort of poisoned apple. I started looking at the Tempting Apple as a turn against with a lightning bolt staple to it. And when you think about it like that, that's a pretty good card, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's costing you a lot more. Well, I guess not a lot more mana, but it is costing you more mana to do it that way. But
a couple more mana.
But when it's something that like anybody could be playing, I think that really changes the way that you interact with the game, and it did seem more powerful and it put up better numbers than I was expecting it to as well. All right, next up, our Chaffee for top drafted commons. Ben, I always love to hear how many events you do because it's always like massively eclipsing mine.
This set, not as much. I played less of this set than I did any set in recent memory. I did 44 events. I only trophied 6, which is pretty low for me. And my win rate was
Sick
down.
brag, bro.
Look, you know, I won an arena open. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about it, but
that was like a year ago. Let it go.
Was bro a year ago? I don't know.
Just about. Yep.
I'm due for another one of those. I was bummed that this most recent one was WoE and not Shadows over Innistrad Remastered. I mean, it was up, right? And we already had one for WoE at the beginning of the format, didn't we? I would have much preferred this one was for Shadows. Although I guess we did already have one when that dropped at first, but I would have loved another one. So my overall record, it ended up being 139 to 106, around like a 56, 57% win rate. A bit low where I usually hang. Whatever. My top drafted commons I'm pretty proud of though. Torch the Tower was my top common. I had 17 of them. Then Curse of the Werefox at 16, and then Stockpiling Celebrant at 16. So some very respectable Chaffee awards given out here. A great red kill spell, a solid green kill spell, and my favorite white common. How about you?
Well, I didn't put up similar numbers, although I did have a better win rate. So, you know, I'm just saying. Much smaller sample size, though, I suppose. So in terms of record, I went 18-12 in games, which is 60% win rate. 18-12 in matches because I only played best of 1. And a total of 4 events. So you had 11 times the events I did, which is sad. At least one of us still plays Magic. Hey,
to be fair, this set was a bit of a turnoff for all of us, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. But
and also
I actually
to your
am
credit,
pretty proud of my top commons.
And also to your credit, you've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work getting the podcast to its current updated state. So,
well, thank you,
listener.
Yeah,
don't think he's bailing on us.
No, definitely not. And I'm pretty excited about Ixalan. But my top drafted commons, I am actually pretty proud of. 9 Crescendo at 4, which I'm not super proud of, but I actually found a lot of decks that card was decent in. Imidane's Recruiter is number 2 at 3 copies. So of the 4 events I did, I drafted 3 Imidane's Recruiters. So that I'm happy with that. And there were a bunch of other red-white cards at 3. I pretty much only played red-white this set.
Solid place to be.
Which I'm not upset about.
Shout out to 17 Lands for letting us easily access this kind of data. 17 Lands is the best. If you're not using them to help track stuff, go do it. It's the best.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, no, we just love 17 Lands. I'm one of the patrons. I sponsor them.
Yeah.
How about the Chaffee for the worst chaff to lose to?
So this was an easy one for me. Normally I have some trouble with this one, but I beat a version of the tap deck that had Hilda. It had her crown. It had all the fixins, all the white and blue cards you could ever want that could tap things and do I crushed it like handily. So anytime I lost to a tap deck, because there was no better tap deck than that one. Like that was it.
Yeah.
Every time I lost to one besides that, I just felt really bad. Like it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I actually had the Hilda deck on here because when you see your opponent has it, it's like, no way do they have. I mean, they always have it all, right? You see them playing blue-white. You see them play the uncommon charade, right? And you're like, oh, that's good. Like their tap things are now turned on. But they probably don't have Hilda, so there's nothing to worry about. And then they always have Hilda, like every single time. And to be fair, the tap deck was nuts when Hilda was on the battlefield. I don't think I ever beat a resolved Hilda because you just immediately have like, if you have that deck, you've probably put enough tapping things in it so that you can activate Hilda immediately. You make a 4/4 and then like draw a card or something. I don't know. There's no bad way to use it. Specifically, probably the worst chaff to lose to within that deck. I once lost to a Rhyme Fur Reindeer. Do you remember what that card is?
I remember the art. I can't remember what it does.
Yeah, it was like a 4-mana 3/4 when in the Shaman ETBs you tap something down. Don't even put a stun counter on it. Just tap it for the turn.
Yeah.
And yet sometimes the white decks, they could just put a bunch of enchantments into play, tap your stuff down, and attack. And that was some embarrassing losses.
Next up, our Chaffee for pet cards. For me, It had to be Ash or Imidane's Recruiter, to be honest. I just never wanted to pass them, and they just felt really fun in this format. And I'm not often picking red-white cards, so it felt meaningful to me that the one that I gravitated toward was red-white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed the play style of Ash, and honestly of Recruiter too. It was a fun card to cast. If anything was going to make it from this set into the Draft Chaff Cube, Recruiter might be up there. My pet card was Stockpiling Celebrant. Loved bouncing nonsense to my hand, including Hopeful Vigil, right? Celebrant, Hopeful Vigil, put as many of those in a deck as possible, and I'll be happy. Now, next up is our Chaffee for card pet. You heard of pet card. Now take our card pet. Which card do you most want as a pet?
Oh, come on. This set had 2 really, really cute otters in it. How am I supposed to pick one? So it was easily a tie between Frolicking Familiar or Elusive Otter. I suppose I'd want the flying one, but that was a
not
tough
the
choice.
one that can put a bunch of counters on you.
No.
What is a counter in real life? Is it like muscle mass?
It's just like protein powder, like creatine.
Nice. My card pet was Regal Bunnycorn. That thing is just, it reminds me of my brother's pet rabbits, which I adore. They're just so inert is maybe the best word. They just sit and do nothing, and they exist. Regal Bunnycorn in the art at least looks kind of like that. Pollen Shield Hair was up there too, but if you look at some of the arts for that, especially the alt art, that thing is clearly nasty. You don't want to mess with it.
It's
but Regal Bunnycorn is more the type of rabbit that just sits there and allows the world to happen around it. And those are my favorite types of rabbit.
And gets giant.
Yeah, that's the thing. They just get huge, but they don't really care. Like, it's not the Bunnycorn. It's not their fault. It's not like them doing it, right? They're just existing. Yeah. Anyway, I'm excited to see if these otters and bunnies and mice and rats and such are plants for that upcoming creature theme
they definitely
set.
Are. Gloomhaven? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that should be cool.
Next up, our Chaffee for Banhammer. Like, just get rid of them. Take them out of the format altogether. They didn't need to be there.
Yeah, this is a tricky one because this is reserved for cards that we think the format would be better without. And I genuinely think the Enchanting Tail Trap cards would be an improvement to the format if they just didn't exist. So take, for example, Doubling Season, right? If you give an average Magic player Doubling Season, they'll be like, oh my God, I remember this from a game of Commander I played a year ago. Like, this card is nuts. I obviously want to take this. And then that person would have the worst draft night of their life as they go, where are all the token enablers? Like, what do you mean they're in an assertive red-white vector? Like, there's no like green. I don't know. I thought that was a disservice to newer players. Other cool cards too, like Fraying Sanity. That card used to be solid in other limited formats, and there are formats where Fraying Sanity would be good. But did you even remember that was in this set? I'd forgotten until I looked at it.
Yeah, no, I didn't until you just said that. I think this is kind of a side effect maybe of the fact that we're in this like internet era of Magic where they do these spoiler seasons, and I think WotC maybe takes for granted that their players are paying attention online to like what's actually in the set and what the vectors in the format are. Because most people who would listen to a podcast like ours or any other MTG podcast or are looking at like Magic Twitter, for example, will sit down at a draft table and know, okay, if I want the cash, sure, I can take a Doubling Season and that's great, but I'm not planning to win games with it. But if someone was just like sitting down at a table in like the old world where you like didn't have the internet and we didn't have spoiler season or any of that stuff, if you sat down at a table and you opened a pack and you saw Doubling Season in the pack, you'd expect it was supported in some capacity.
Yeah, you would just take it.
We don't have that luxury anymore. You kind of need to be you kind of need to be studying up before you draft anymore if you want to have a reasonable win rate.
And that's not great.
Yeah, it's a little annoying.
What was your favorite vector in the set? I think I know your answer.
Oh yeah, red white, not close. And probably because I only really drafted red white, I think I had maybe one non-red white deck. And so unfortunately, I guess I didn't branch out to try some of the other stuff before I kind of just like let the set kind of pass me by. But I had a lot of fun with the decks that I did play. So red white was pretty great. What about you?
For me, it was the 4/5 color nonsense. These decks relied on Prophetic Prism as kind of their glue. And they also relied on Brave the Wilds, Return from the Wilds, the 1 mana go get a land, the 3 mana go get a land and make a token or a food too. Hatching Plans and Kellen's Late Blades, I mentioned a lot. You could basically just take all these random cards, know that you'd be able to splash pretty much anything. And then it was sort of like some of those old decks where, think back to like, what was it? The second Ixalan block, when you could draft these like multicolored decks that you just put a bunch of chickens in, the 2/5 flyer, and you would just sit behind them forever, and you knew you were safe, you knew you couldn't die, and eventually you would draw your win con and the mana you needed to cast it, and you just win. It sort of had that vibe to it. Where you could take like a horned lock whale or a Balloona, even if you're a base black green, and you'd be like, I will eventually get all my lands together. I will eventually have the stuff I need to do this. And I have the card advantage and the card quality needed to survive. Because when you have the super reactive vector, I keep talking about Kellen's Late Blades, but it's 2 mana destroy an attacking creature if you enable it properly. And that's really powerful. That can help a reactive vector survive so that they have the time to make use of these expensive and hard to cast bombs. Then again, I would sometimes just go 1-3 with these decks because there were so many good beatdown decks. I don't know. That's another issue with the format, though.
All right, so what's your least favorite vector?
That's got to be tapping. I'm just so bummed by how this one flopped. I mean, tapping in theory should have been a fun, unique. There were multiple build arounds like that were clearly vector posts for it, and they just did not do anything. They were just so bad against the hyper beatdown stuff. Just really disappointing.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of add to that because I agree. The tapping vector was my least favorite as well. But I want to kind of, for lack of better phrasing, double click on that. We're specifically saying the tapping vector, not blue-white. And I think that's part of what we love about vector theory is that it gets beyond just like the color combinations. Mm-hmm. There were really good blue-white decks, but they tended to be more like mid-rangey kind of like tempo / value decks, as opposed to just like everything's about tapping and let me lock down your board and then I'll figure out how to win. Yeah. And the ones that went hard into tapping just didn't work. That vector looked very well supported and it just wasn't good.
What were some cards you never cast?
I mean, all the non-red white stuff.
Nice. I played enough of the format that I was able to cast most things, but there were a couple of rares I never got. Werefox Bodyguard, never saw one of those. A Farsight Ritual, sort of like the Memory Deluge, the 4 mana card draw spell. Tangled Colony, the 2 mana rat. Blossoming Tortoise, that mythic. And obviously, I pretty much never cast any of the Enchanting Fails. So that was a big bummer there. I mean, when you just tell me, hey, there's this set out right now, and around 10% of it, you should just never cast. It would be a mistake to cast that in game. I care about having fun, but I also care about winning games because I have fun by doing that too. So that's just a big turnoff for a format for me.
All right. Draft Chaff Cube inclusions. Did anything make it? Is anything on the chopping block? Are we looking to add anything?
I mentioned earlier, we actually have a couple good options for blue board wipes. Right now, the ones in the cube rely about mass bounce. I think we could maybe get a little more creative with that. Asinine Antics is a funny Magic card. And I sometimes forget it's in this set because it's a mythic. It doesn't come up very often. But that's the 4 mana, turn all of your opponent's things cursed. Make them all into 1/1s. And I mean, that interacts a little differently with the cube than it does us in this set. There's a lot of flicker effects. There's a lot of reanimation and sack effects. I don't think it would be nearly as powerful, and it wasn't even that powerful and limited here. I do think Extraordinary Journey could have a home. That's sort of like a blue board wipe, but it also has synergy with like exile stuff, of which there's a good amount in our cube. Oh, wait a minute. Is it a creature spell you cast from exile or a creature spell that enters the battlefield from exile?
Oh, if it's enters the battlefield, then that makes the flicker deck disgusting when it already was pretty good.
It's just enters the battlefield. Dude, we have to put this card in. This card is a mass. Oh wow. It's a blue board wipe that you can use in the flicker deck. Okay, that card's definitely going in. Per patron approval. Anyway, what do you think? What
I'm
are your
glad
ideas?
we have this oversight board now. Ben's just gonna buy it and put it in his physical copy anyway.
It's
in the
oversight
copy,
from us. It's not the other way around where we're oversight from the patrons. It's the patrons oversight.
They're making sure we don't do stupid stuff with our own cube. Yeah. For me though, I actually thought that it could be interesting to toy around with celebration in the cube. Not in like a large capacity, but we have a lot of flickers, so getting like 2 things to enter the battlefield in one turn doesn't seem to me to be very difficult. And so I was thinking stockpiling Celebrant may be a good inclusion.
Yeah, I would love to see Celebrant go in the cube.
Well, that wraps up all our Chaffies. Hope you enjoyed that. We do have a little bit to continue kind of just to send off the set. So, of course, our usual would you rather question, which evolves from set to set. This time around, would you rather be Oko's son or Rowan's brother?
Neither is a great family member to be.
Yeah, not so much.
I don't like the position of either of these people. Son of just a total jerk, or brother of just a total jerk. So I don't know who's more gone here, Oko or Rowan. Neither is looking very good. I think I'd rather be Oko's son, though. I think Kellen's got it going. Will, he's doing his best to keep the realm together, but ultimately he wasn't able to bring Rowan back to the light side. She blasted off again in the end of the story, right? So who knows what's going to happen. I'm going to go with Kellen. What do you think?
Well, so I didn't think about this in terms of would I rather be Kellen or Will. I thought about it as myself as either Oko's son or Rowan's brother.
All right, let's hear it.
I'd much rather be like Rowan's not a very nice sister, but Oko's bound to have caused some like serious mental health issues for this kid. And while Rowan may have done so to her brother as well, I think I'd probably take being Rowan's sister because at least she's not actually insane. Like she's not off turning everybody into elk and like doing all this crazy stuff and then just like peacing out and like I'll never talk to you again. She at least tried to make things work with her brother, and then she was like, I'm not getting what I need. I'm going to go off on this excursion and try to find myself and whatever. Fine. You go do your thing, sis. I think I'm cool with that.
Next up is our final farewell, our final thoughts on the format. Honestly, I don't even have that much to say. I think I've said it all.
Yeah, I mean, overall, pretty medium format, in my opinion. I didn't think it was overwhelmingly bad. I didn't think it was particularly good either, and probably wouldn't bother flashing it back if it were, coming back around and there was something else available to draft. Yeah, it wasn't so bad that if it was the only set around that I wouldn't draft it, but if there's other options, I probably wouldn't bother.
Yeah, this is honestly one of the first big misses they've had in quite a while. I mean, most vectors in this set were misses. Like the enchantments going to the graveyard was a miss. The whole rolls thing concentrated within green-white, like an enchantress type thing, that was kind of a miss. The tapping thing, that was a miss. Just some of the blue-red spells cards weren't even that good.
Really all we had were like, it was like red-white, black-red, and just like a smattering of everything. Jackson Pollock.
Like the black-green piles, right? So it just wasn't that interesting or replayable. The enchanting fails definitely didn't help. Not a lot of good. Actually, this week on Limited Resources, they did a really good breakdown of how there were not a lot of good builder rounds in this set, which I think in our language, we would say not a lot of good vector uncommons, ones that kind of really strongly point you in a direction that are unique and that you don't get to do all the time. I don't even remember the name of the 3 mana. It was 2 and a white. It was like Enchanting Castle or something. It was the Tapper synergy piece, right? Where
Solitary Castle or Solitude Castle or something.
Who cares? Like it's never going to see play ever anywhere else again. And that's sad because we love Draft Chaff and that is Draft Chaff that we should love. And I don't like it very much because it just didn't work and I never got to play it.
Solitary Sanctuary, by the way.
I already forget.
It's like that meme. I don't know if you've seen that. There's a meme that's going around of like being from the perspective of like a guitar player not knowing the notes they play, like when they're just riffing, and like somebody like that's an A, and he's like, I already forget. I don't know what that is. All right, so with WoE behind us in the dust, right? What are we looking forward to for the next set? Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
Dinosaurs. I am so in for dinosaurs. I just ordered all the pieces I was missing for green-white standard humans. And then I realized I can play dinosaurs in standard. They printed a 1 mana dinosaur mana dork. You're telling me I'm supposed to not play a standard Llanowar elf? Like, that's just what I do. And I did actually play red green dinos in standard last time they were standard legal. Funny enough, that was also immediately following a green white humans deck. Huh. History's a circle, whatever. Anyway, this seems like a full tilt graveyard vector, but it's all around crafting and exploration. Some cool new mechanics. This is very unique. I mean, usually with graveyard stuff, we've seen them go for like a zombies thing on Innistrad or even on Tarkir with Delve. But this is very different. So yeah, it does amaze me how the design team continues to come up with creative new things. Even
we'll
though
see
they
how
are
it
getting
plays
more and
out.
more complex.
They are getting more complex. We should probably do an episode on just that. But we'll see how it plays out. I think some of these things sound really fun, like red white in Strixhaven sounded like, oh, that's a cool way to do graveyard stuff. Like that's a little bit different. And then it didn't play out very well. So I'm hesitantly optimistic, I suppose. It does sound really cool. I love the idea of the crafting, the exploration stuff, and the way that they've done Descend seems really cool. I'm really just excited overall to see how these mechanics work out. And I'm interested to see an Ixalan set that isn't actually like tribal. Like they didn't design it to be tribal in nature. You still have vampires, you still have dinosaurs, etc. But it's not the way the first Ixalan set was, where it's like very clearly you've got these tribes that you want to build your decks around. And so we'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
Let's hop into our listener question of the week. We've got one from Patar here. Patar asks about removal ratios. Even though it's kind of what you're given and depends on what archetype you fall into, how much removal is too little? How much is too much? Cool question here. It's hard to have too much good removal overall, like full stop, but I feel like it can influence your vector. I'm going to talk about Kellen's Lightblades again, because this type of effect, a 2 or 3 mana, destroy target attacking or blocking creature, or like deal 4 to an attacking blocking or creature, right? This is sometimes misused as an assertive vector removal spell, but it's actually a reactive vector removal spell. So this isn't like a beatdown card. This is a control card. And yeah, you can get away with like 1 or 2 in an aggressive deck if you're low on options. But if you have like 3 or 4 of them coming around the table early, maybe reconsider what you have and try to switch into like a reactive style control deck. And again, it depends on vectors. I feel like vectors are more constrained by the creatures that you have access to. Like assertive decks, they want tons of low drops, like 6 or 8 1 and 2 mana spells or creatures, and probably like 14 or 15 creatures overall. So then you have like 8 or 9 slots for everything else. That's enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers, battles, pump spells, and then removal spells too, right? So I'd say an assertive deck, if they're super assertive, could probably play like 7 or 8 removal spells before it's too much. But then that means you're not playing pump spells, and it means you're not playing artifacts and enchantments and other maybe synergy pieces that your deck might want. Let's say Solitary
Sanctuary.
Let's say Solitary Sanctuary was good and it was like a blue-white beatdown tempo deck, right? You would want that in place of maybe a mediocre removal spell, because it would have been a good vector synergy piece. And, past that, the assertive decks, they do start to eat into their creature count, and that can be bad. I mean, I've seen black-red decks with like 8 or 9 removal spells. I actually drafted a deck this format. I think I had like 10 removal spells, and it turned out I just couldn't build the board presence to actually attack my opponent and kill them. Reactive vectors, though, like controlling vectors, you can play basically as many as you want, as long as you have a way to close out the game. Maybe like a board wipe or like a giant bomb like Gruff Triplets or Hornlock Whale or something like that. Or card advantage like Hatching Plans to eventually flood the board. But then those decks, there's not really a limit. I would play 10 or 12 kill spells in like a good blue-red deck in Shadows of Innistrad, for example, right? Where you have Rise from the Tides to eventually make like 15 zombies and just attack all in one turn. You can just kill all their stuff and bide your time.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a really nice overall explanation for it. In general, too, I think these sets, sets today and for probably the last like at least half a decade or so, there are just way too many threats to deal with. And so like you can almost never, to your point, Ben, you can almost never have enough removal. So you should just really prioritize finding removal that's worth putting in your deck in the first place. And that's why we talk so often about just like unconditional removal and how good that is, because you don't have very many slots in a deck for removal typically, so they better be really good. And I think a lot of times if you can worry more about like outpacing your opponent in terms of threats, you're going to be just as good as if you focus entirely on removal.
Mm-hmm.
All right, on to our Teferi Tibble. This is our Roses and Thorns style segment where Ben and I share a high and a low from the past week. Ben, how's your week going?
Man, this has been a busy week. I know you and I have been going nuts working on this relaunch and all the moving pieces, right? There's so many more than you would think. Art assets and posting and this and that. And, well, we actually have one more big announcement. Probably the most exciting thing about some of these rebrands things. Well, not most, but it's definitely top 3 for me. We're going to be playing in the streamer event. So we've been invited for the first time to the early access streamer event, which is honestly, if you had told me when I started playing Magic that someday I would get an early access pass to a streamer event, I would have said, no way. Like, what are you talking about? But that means we get to draft Chaff before we usually do, right? We get to draft Chaff before anyone else. And you're invited. We would like you to join us on Wednesday the 8th, Wednesday, November 8th at 5 p.m. EST. Please hop on YouTube. We will link this. We'll share it in Discord, all this good stuff. But hop into our stream. We'll be streaming if I can, I guess, manage to make OBS work. I'm not not that proficient. Twitch scares me, to be honest. But YouTube,
based
I
on
can
your
handle.
GIMP skills, I'm not too enthusiastic about this.
Look, if I can match the color scheme of my OBS layout to our new color scheme, I think that'll be good enough. That being said, it's going to be a great time. Come on out. I'm going to be streaming all night and probably a little bit the next day too. I'll maybe announce more of that as it comes. But that's going to be so much fun. We're going to get to play against all the other creators, especially good limited creators, right? I know a lot of the pros play in this early access event too. So if you want to see us demolish other podcast hosts, other limited hosts, then,
that's a claim. Oh boy.
We'll see. Anywho, that's going to be a ton of fun. Also, Teferi this week, just loving the new layout. I love everything about this. Everything for our new intro music, which crafted myself, to our updated art assets, to all this other cool stuff. It's nice. It's refreshing. It feels new, and I'm honestly very excited for the new Patreon stuff. I'm again just so thankful for all the support we've gotten from you, listener, and I'm really excited to see what people want from us next. If it's more of these like drafts, I mean, we could eventually open it up to have maybe multiple pods of that monthly draft firing, or maybe more packs for the bounty boards. I mean, this is limited by what people want to give into us, right? So super excited to see where that all goes. All right, that was a long Teferi. It's been a good week. But Tibble, I lost my voice at a concert this past week, and I don't know if you can tell, but I'm still not fully recovered. I was just screaming at the top of my lungs, so that was fun. And I guess a Tibble would be that this has been a ton of work. This is so much, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears going into it. But honestly, that's a Tibble and a Teferi, right? Because I think it's all paid off. I really like where we're at. How about you?
Yeah, and we'll see where it continues to go. I agree. Teferi, for me, is the new stuff of the show. I mean, Ben and I have been working on a lot of these revamps and changes and tweaking how we were going to communicate it and trying to do all those different things for about 2 months now, and a little bit longer if you count like the first time the idea popped up and we just started talking through some of those things. But we've been actively pushing to get to this point for 2 months, putting in a lot of time and effort into it. So really happy to see that folks seem to be loving it so far. Again, if you would like to let us know your feedback on all the different changes that are going on, jump in the Discord. We've got a space just for you to be able to give us feedback as well. And we'd love to hear from you. My Tibble is, while pseudo related to that, also just in general with life, I've been kind of burning the candle at both ends lately, between whether it be work or personal life or the show or on and on and on. I am not getting enough sleep or hydration or rest in any capacity. So while I'm feeling great, like mental health wise, like I'm doing all right. I'm not feeling burned out or like stressed in any capacity. My body is telling me otherwise.
Yeah, I feel you.
So yeah, I don't know. I should probably get to sleep earlier. So that about does it for us this week. Thank you so much for listening. Do check out the Discord if you haven't already. The link to that is in the episode description, as well as on our Twitter page. If you're watching on YouTube, check the description below. You'll find all those details there as well. If you'd like to support the show directly, you can do so on Patreon, patreon.com/DraftChaffPod. Again, check out those tiers. Let us know what you think about them. You can also follow on Patreon now, where you don't have to sub or become a patron per se in terms of like paying money, but you can follow, and then any public posts we put out, you'll also get access to. So that's another way you can keep an eye on what's going on with the Patreon. And if you'd like to find us on social media, you can find us at DraftChaffPod. You can also find us on Reddit at DraftChaffPod. We do have a subreddit as well, though not very active at the moment. So if that's something that folks want to see more of, we can definitely be involved there. And yeah, I think that does it for us. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
I guess it's a bit of a plug for the Patreon. We had quite the pre-show this week. I think it was like 35 or 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it ranged everything from me cooking soup, which is still on the stove, by the way. It's been simmering this entire time. I am very excited to go see how that's doing. To trying to figure out how many cups of, what does a cup of spinach actually mean? Because, you know, I hate the way like recipe websites do literally everything. I now have to scroll how there's 15 pop-ups. Just how they auto refresh and like take you to the top of the page. I assume to reload the ads that you've all X'd off. That's probably it, right? So, anywho, but then we also like took a deep dive into how I do my editing process, my behind the scenes, and I don't know. It was an interesting workflow mindset. I think you got a nice look inside my head. And a nice look inside how Zach and I interact when the cameras aren't rolling, because I didn't actually know the cameras were rolling for a good chunk of the pre-show.
Despite the fact that you told me to start recording.
So if you would like to see what I'm actually like, truly, genuinely, not knowing, because let's be honest, everybody acts different when they know there's a camera or a mic that's live. Except I didn't. And you get to see everything. I think at one point I even pulled up the streamer Discord channel. Was that on the video?
Oh, you might have actually.
Are we allowed to show that? I'm not sure.
You're gonna make me edit the pre-show. I normally don't edit the pre-shows at all.
Leave it in. I think that's actually fine. I think we're allowed to have that. I think.
I don't know if we are. I'm probably gonna have to blur all that out.
You should put like a big censored bar over the top of it. Like just like put up just a big black censored anything like that. Anyway, I think it's time to go eat this soup. Yeah,
let's do it. I mean, I won't eat your soup, but I made soup recently too, so I'll go eat that.